Howdy once again everyone, and to celebrate the end of 2023, I thought it might be fun to give out some end of year awards, seeing as everyone seemed to like it so much last year. These are awards for the best whatever lenses I've tested over the past year. If any of you want to know the sharpest, well, that'll come at the end obviously. This year was mildly less eventful on my channel than last year, but one nice change is that I'm covering a lot more cameras now. Camera reviews rather than lens reviews take a lot more time for me to put together, but I know they're what you want to see, and overall the channel is still growing quite nicely, which is great as I've been ploughing in the work recently, as you'll have seen from all my recent tests. But of course it's all about the camera lenses on this channel, so here are awards for lenses I have tested over the past year or so, for you not to take too seriously. No fanboys in the comment section, okay, darn it. As usual, links to my full reviews are in the description below, as well as affiliate links if you'd like to buy one, which supports this channel a little bit. Firstly, my favourite zoom lens. Been some great new zoom lenses arriving this year, and the runner-up has to be Canon's incredible 100 to 300mm f2.8. I couldn't believe how enjoyable and ridiculously sharp that thing was, and with a sticker price of $10,000 it was a privilege for me just to be able to test it out, and I got a few funny comments from people who'd noticed that I'd used such a lens to test out a Canon R100 budget camera. But yeah, my favourite zoom lens this year has to have been the Sony FE 20 to 70mm f4. Even though it's seriously overpriced, what it can do is so exciting. It's just so much fun to use, but what really took me by surprise was how sharp it was. Sony equipment might be expensive these days, but no one can say they make any compromises on their premium lenses. I loved zooming out as wide as 20mm. Next, my favourite telephoto lens of the year, and I found it hard to decide this year because I absolutely loved the Fuji XF 150 to 600mm. What an amazing zoom range, and when coupled with one of Fuji's latest cameras for the best image quality and autofocus, you wouldn't believe how much fun that thing is. But my favourite had to be the absolutely incredible Canon RF 1200mm f8. At a price of $20,000, I couldn't even believe Canon were willing to lend me that thing in the first place, and it's very difficult to find your subject at such a crazy tight angle, but the results just speak for themselves, and I loved every second of using this crazy optic. Also, it's hand-holdable, and its image stabilization is incredible too. This picture was taken handheld at 1/15 of a second. Can you believe it? At 1200mm. Next, my favourite wide-angle lens. There have been a few of them this year, once again, including the fabulous TTArtisan's 9mm f5.6, Sony 16 to 35mm f2.8, and Mark II, of course, and surprisingly good Pergear 14mm f2.8 Mark II. So I don't know which is the best wide-angle lens, but my favourite had to be the Sigma 14mm f1.4 Art. There's nothing like it on the market today for getting unique, extreme wide-angle pictures that can also have an out-of-focus background, and of course the astrophotography opportunities it presents are predictably incredible. Next, the best value for money lens of this year. Well, the Viltrox lens company have been on fire so far in 2023, so I'm just going to blanket give this one to them for their fabulous autofocus 27mm f1.2, 75mm f1.2 aps-c lenses, and 20mm f2.8 full frame lenses. All three of those perform real nice and kind of blow away the low budget competition out there. Viltrox really are the new Samyang right now. But one of the most interesting low-budget manual focus lenses for me this year was the Astrhori 12mm f2.8 Fisheye. Now, I don't use fisheye lenses much, so I never want to spend much money on them, but this thing, for only $250, had nice image quality and got me some gorgeous images for the review, which I always appreciate. Next, my weirdest review. This year I didn't cover as many weird lenses as I usually do, except for some of those interesting probe lenses. If you know any weird lenses I haven't tested yet, let me know, or better yet, send me one. I found the Samyang VAF lenses a little strange and difficult to fully get my head around, interesting though as they are. Probably the strangest was the TTArtisan's 100mm f2.8 bubble Bokeh lens, a brand new manual focus lens but launched on the old M42 screw mount. I liked the unusual bokeh it produced, although that's not for everyone, and in the comments section a lot of people really rallied around it. So I'd actually be keen to know how well it did or didn't do on the market. I wonder how many they sold. Next, the most vexing lens for me to test, and this was definitely the Tokina 900mm f11 mirror lens. Okay, I like Tokina lenses, honestly. They've been putting out better and better stuff recently, but this aps-c mirror lens was a living nightmare for me to test out. It's soft, difficult to use, and so enormously telephoto that I couldn't get my test chart far enough away from it. I really am getting a bit sick of mirror lenses at this point and trying to focus them, although I wish I could test out the autofocus one that Sony made years and years ago, or was it Minolta? Anyway, now an award for the video I lost the most money in making. Most of my videos go into enough of a profit after a few years or so for me to keep this channel going, with the help of my Patreon supporters that is, but once in a while I make a loss, and my big loss this year was my trip to Turkey for the press announcement of the Sony A9 Mark III camera. Now, let me clarify, Sony took care of everything for the journalists who went there, or who went to New York. In fact, they generously let us stay at a very fancy hotel, but I asked for a flight home a day later than everyone else so I could look around Antalya and get some pictures of the ancient sites, and of course get some Turkish food. It was an amazing little break for me, actually, especially as the temperature in Turkey was 26 degrees at the time, Celsius of course, against 9 degrees back in the UK, but I ended up spending about £300 on taxi journeys, presents for my family, Turkish food, and staying in a hotel the extra night. So I'm not complaining about that, but I had to tighten my purse strings for a few weeks afterwards, and I don't think my video about that particular camera is going to make £300. But hey, that was my choice, and I got a nice break out of it. Now then, the worst lens I've tested this year. There were definitely a few stinkers this year, including the Maker 25mm f0.95 and TTArtisan 28mm f5.6, but the absolute worst was a lens that I inherited this year from my dad, the Hanimex 28mm f2.8 from the 70s, I think it was. This low-budget monstrosity was a piece of garbage back then in the 70s on film cameras, let alone nowadays on digital. It's like the lens where everything went wrong. Its images are truly horrifying, and if you fancy a bit of a laugh, watch the review. And now, a new award, the People's Choice Award. A selection of 3 of your favourite lenses this year was selected by subscribers to my channel, and then I left it up to my Patreon supporters to make the final choice, and they went for the Viltrox 75mm f1.2, a truly brilliant autofocus portrait lens for aps-c mirrorless camera systems. You all praised its great value for money, lovely build and image quality, and I read comments that were simply delighted by the disruption Viltrox are bringing to the low budget side of the market. So congratulations Viltrox, the people have spoken. And finally, what I'm sure a few of you have been waiting for, the sharpest lens I tested in 2023. The Hanimex lens, of course. No, seriously, Sony were threatening to storm away in this category with their 50mm f1.4, 70-200mm f4, and 16-35mm f2.8 Mark II lenses, being all absolutely incredible. There have been some sharp new Sigma lenses also, but after a lot of studying and reviewing of test results on my hard drives, I took another look at the results of a certain new portrait lens that came out this year, the Canon RF 135mm f1.8. it was the only new lens this year I could find which was razor sharp from image corner to image corner, straight from its maximum aperture with excellent contrast, both on a 45 megapixel full frame camera and on a 32.5 megapixel aps-c camera, one of the most challenging out there. So in a field of overachievers, I just had to give this Canon lens the prize. It's the sharpest. Well done, Canon. Alright, that is it for now. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, as well as if you can think of any better award categories I could do next year. You probably can, quite frankly. Take care everyone, God bless. Patreon page in the description below. Thanks for the support, and Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year.